Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business. Hey friends, I'm Carl, founder of Epic Made, and Ross couldn't make it with us today, but he's our creative director, and we're the hosts of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Marcy Selsberg of Blah Blah Blah, Joe Weaver of OceanTea.com, and Rebecca Blake of the Graphic Artists Guild. We are forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we are always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is always brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of artists, strategists with a mastery of visual storytelling. Our studio makes unforgettable animation and graphic illustration infused with ideas that put money in your pocket. We best serve marketers and brands seeking to engage nerdy millennials, and some of our favorite clients include Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign. All right, so with us today we have Terrence Moline and David McClinton. Terrence is the AAGD founder and head listener. He's a jiu-jitsu practitioner, father, husband, an amazing cook with dapper looks. As well as we have Dave today. Dave is an artist and designer and the creative director at AAGD and was too busy working to get us a full bio for today. So
that's how it is. I do all the fun stuff apparently, and Dave does all the hard work. And this time I was like, no, you got to be on the podcast with me because people need to know you as much as they see me. So I'm so glad he's here.
100%. Really glad to have you guys both here. And so before we jump into the meat of today's episode, which is going to be new AI workflows for creatives, and I'm sure we're going to talk about all kinds of other fun stuff too. But I have a couple quick questions. So we'll start with you, Terrence, and then we'll jump over to Dave. But I want our audience to get to know you a little better. So tell us how long you've been in the industry and what project you're most proud of.
Oh yeah, okay. So I've been in the industry. What is it, 30 years? I'm almost 50. Yeah, bro. If not, I've been an artist since I was a kid. So yeah, 30 years. Okay. So project that I'm most proud of, there are several. I'm still going to stick with the Death Penalty Information Center work because we're wrapping up a report today. Matter of fact, we got to do the walkthrough. And I just think that somehow, no matter how heavy that report is, it always comes out looking like a coffee table book. And I think that's very unexpected for such a heavy topic. And I think that we put a lot of work and a lot of thought and consideration and humanity into those reports. So I'm really proud of the work that I do there.
Yeah, that sounds pretty amazing. I'd love to dive into that a little bit, actually, if you want to.
Okay. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Cool. All right. So we'll talk about that some more in a second. But Dave, you want to answer the same questions? How long you been in the business, and what piece of work are you most proud of?
Sure. There's a weird starting date, right? Like, do you go by when you first got your first job or the first time you ever got paid to be a designer?
That's like asking no accountant first base.
Right. I'm gonna go all the way back to when I was still in school because I had a little side hustle knocking out logos for people.
Nice.
So that's what I typically count, which means I've been making money as a designer for 32 years.
Hell yeah.
And the thing I'm most proud of is that instead of picking a project, it's a bit of a cop out, but it's the truth, is that I just wrapped up some logo concepts like 15 minutes ago. I still love it as much as I did when I was in school. I still love logo design as much. So I'm proud that I've been able to keep my focus and my level of love for it all these years. So that's what I'm most proud of, actually.
That passion is huge, and I'm sure that I haven't seen any of your work, but I'm sure that it comes through. Like, there's no way that it doesn't, right? You can see when people really love this shit. And Terrence was telling me that before you got on there. Like, he's like, this guy's my favorite logo designer on the planet. So that's really amazing, man. I'm really, really glad to hear that. So
Although he does all of his logos in InDesign, but that's another conversation.
Hey, I mean, really, there's not a huge difference between InDesign and Illustrator on the idea. If you're custom creating it with the pen tool and like laying out your type, like, I mean, you could do that in whatever, right? Like, so might as well do it in
It's just a Bezier curve. That's all I really need is Bezier curves to draw what I'm drawing. I mean, I use Illustrator to do specific things, but it's kind of like, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but sometimes the software gets really bloated.
Yeah.
And there are so many ways and tools to do things in Photoshop and Illustrator that it can slow you down sometimes, which I'm sure we'll get into when we start talking about AI and things like that. But InDesign is so stripped down in terms of messing with vectors that nothing gets in the way. It's more of a pure environment for me.
Dude, for sure. I mean, back in 04, 05, I did all my logos in Illustrator and all my graphic design in InDesign, not Illustrator, because Illustrator they just bought Macromedia and they hadn't pulled freehand into Illustrator. Yeah. And freehand had multiple pages and artboards. They didn't have that back then, right? So I was like, if I'm concepting 20 things, I want it all right in one spot. So I would always use InDesign as well. Now they have that, multiple artboard. I think they even have it in Photoshop now. I haven't turned that setting on.
I think they do too. In freehand, man, I used to laid out publications in freehand because that's all I had.
Yeah.
Like back in the day, I couldn't afford Quark. I couldn't afford PageMaker. I could only afford one thing of software at a time because they were like $600-700.
Yeah.
So I only had freehand. Man, I could just lay out copy in that.
Believe it or not, I had freehand, and I was like, I'm never using Illustrator.
And then you get Quark.
I'm not fun.
Same with Quark in InDesign. I was like, I am not learning another program. I don't care. That was a long time ago, guys.
I bought one copy of a legitimate Adobe suite, like I think I bought like CS3, like the student edition, or CS2. I don't know, but and then they went to the subscription model. But before that, it was like I'm like freshman in college, like all my stuff was bootleg. Like I'm sure everybody's
all of us.
Yeah, it's like
I've never done that.
Yeah,
right. For the record,
for the record, what we mean is theoretically, I think the statute of limitations has gone on that. But
good.
Yeah, Adobe's gotten tens of thousands of dollars of our money. They're fine.
For real.
Yeah. Well, all right. So let's circle back real quick on this death penalty info because I really think that sounded very intriguing. I'd love to hear a little more high level about that.
Yeah. So this Death Penalty Information Center, they have reports right now that link slavery and how African Americans were treated by the police and how they were lynched to like how that sentiment still exists within the death penalty sentencing. And so we are doing one for each city that has like a high level of death penalty of executions, right? So we've got Missouri, Tennessee, Oklahoma. So we're just going through all of it. And right now I'm working on Missouri. And, they have some specifications sometimes, like these images that we see of people hanging all the time. Dave, I know you and I see those images so much. We know those people by name. And you and I can talk about how hard or, getting used to working with images like that and trying to portray them in a different light. But what we do is we take some of the information and some of the images and we create them in a modern and contemporary way. Like if somebody is describing somebody who was hung or lynched, I have a tendency to use like body parts that are like shadows from maybe Adobe stock. Recently, I generated one in Illustrator through their generative fill, and I just asked it to make some hands for me, and it made some hands, and then I took that hand and I put it in Photoshop, and then I put newspaper print over it that was talking about the lynching, and then that's what I put in the report because I think that's new, it's fresh, it's very artistic, and it still conveys the same heaviness of the situation.
Sure. Versus like, here's an image of a guy hanging.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Okay. And that's been portrayed that way before, right? It's a weird subject to in my head. It's like, oh, that's kind of played out, but like, it's not, that's like it. A man was murdered, right? Rather, he deserved it as a whole other, line of reasoning. But, man, heavy stuff. So how do you work in that space, especially, looking at like the correlations that you see with race and racism in those like systemically, like how does that affect you like as a person making this stuff, and how do you stay above or do you not even stay above it emotionally? Like I feel like there's a lot there to unpack,
That's a great question for both of us. Dave,
Yeah.
do you want to take it first, or do you want me to do it since you work with the same subject matters?
Well, I work with those subject matters more in my art than I do for in design work. But I would say that things like the attempted and in some cases successful erasure of Black history and the crimes against Black Americans, that makes it easy, actually. It makes it easy to take on those subjects because we know there are people running for president actively trying to erase that history and trying to disavow that history. So when you know that there are powers that high up in the food chain trying to shut you up, it makes whatever emotional weight it takes to do the work, to me personally, it makes it very minimal.
You're motivated.
Very active fight. So I don't have time to feel bad about myself because there is a presidential candidate trying to disavow.
Candidates, plural.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it makes it,
Sure.
For me personally, it makes it pretty, it's easy to work with, actually.
Yeah. So I would say it hasn't been, so I started studying African-American history in like college because I was right in Loyola in New Orleans, right next to Tulane University, which has the Amistad Research Center. And then we had our local community bookstore. So I would be back and forth between those things, getting used to these images, right? And so I think the problems I had with it were back then when I was younger, and Loyola was predominantly white, believe it or not. Well, yeah, it was. And so that was hard because I would read about all that stuff and then I'd be the only one experiencing and didn't have to deal with everybody else who was dealing with what party they're going to go to, and how much we're going to drink. And I was in a totally different headspace. And I will say today, it still affects me in a way because it puts me in deep contemplation. Yeah. And I have noticed that it will make me very sensitive. Like if I can relate anything that's happened back in those days to something that's happening in my life presently, I will react strongly to it. Like, no. People got away with that forever. That's not happening right now. And so go ahead.
You're right. We need that. No, without a doubt. So I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No problem. So it empowers me. And, it was really funny. For the first time, my daughter, she's 11, her name was Chrissy. She walked up and she saw the stuff that I was working on, and we watch horror movies and all this other stuff. So she's into like gruesome stuff.
Right.
But this was the first time she actually saw what I was working on, and I was showing her and like just talking about things. And that was the first time I have seen her like disgusted. I was just like, oh, that really affected her in a way I didn't think. So now as a parent, I'm just like, now I have to think about how to like really talk about this in a way that it's not jarring for somebody who's just learning about this history.
Yeah, and it's also like one of those things, maybe it should be jarring, right? Like that's like it's jarring shit, right? Like maybe the sugarcoating part of some of this stuff is why it's been able to fly under the radar as long as it did, but good.
That's true.
Good on you guys for being a part of that and getting the messaging out there. Where can people go to see more about the Death Penalty Info Project?
Yeah, you could go to the Death Penalty Information Center, and they have all of the reports on the website. So you can go look at all of the things that we have done there. Yeah, because we didn't put them on our website yet. We just have them in our little PDFs that we send out to everybody. But you can go to that website and see things.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely make sure that gets out there, and we'll probably have that in the comments, I'm sure, below, or the description, or whatever the thing is that goes along with the episode. Awesome. You mentioned something in there like earlier on. You guys were talking about some of the AI you were using in that, and that can kind of segue nicely into like, hey, let's talk about AI workflows for creatives here. So
yeah, you know what's interesting, and this is the last thing I'll beat on this one, is the difference between Firefly. So I'm using Firefly right now in ChatGPT 4.
Okay.
And Firefly is really sensitive to some terms. So some of the things that I'm trying to create for this report, like I could say I have a picture of a judge and a lawyer and somebody who's being convicted, and it's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. because it violates rules, which I think is insane. And I was writing them about that. I was like, how on earth are people who do civil justice work supposed to like use this tool if you're like killing all the names? And Dave, we've also had that problem with Facebook too, right? Oop, mute. Yes.
There were some. So we were trying to promote a program for one of our nonprofit orgs out in LA, and when you describe what they do in terms of social justice and things like that, there were certain search terms that didn't allow us to promote events and promote aspects of what they do because it had a keyword that Facebook decided, oh, that we're triggered. We're clutching our pearls over this one word. When we're not using it to promote anything bad, we're trying to say, hey, this is an organization fighting against this. But the minute you say the word, because it's AI and there's no human there making a decision, the system just shuts you down because there's no nuance.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment over, well, this isn't a promotion, this is a discussion.
Yeah.
So that happens a lot too. And even with my art, I can't really promote my art the way I used to because I've had my art flagged as offensive imagery.
Okay. Dave, talk more about what your art though. Like why?
So I have to be very careful with so I can't even show everything I make because Instagram will decide, oh no, we can't show elements of what actually happened in this country. So, but it's cool to be a Proud Boy and say whatever you want to say as a Proud Boy.
Yeah. Which is the worst name for a
odd.
Yeah, it is. And so that's what those are my concerns about AI, because they're not picking up the context and making decisions like this person is actually working on this. And that's one of the things that I kept trying. So I had to, in order to get DALL-E to produce what I wanted to produce, like it was this judge was asking this trial lawyer if he was saying, if this person is innocent, should we still put them to the death to execute them? And the attorney was like, and so I was trying to do an illustration like that. And so what I had to do was grab a picture of a lawyer or a judge, female judge from the internet, put it into DALL-E and say, hey, could you describe this image to me? And that's one of the things that I'm having a lot of fun with, is having the computer ChatGPT describe it to me in different ways. Like, describe this to me like you were a police sketch reporter, or describe this to me like you were my best friend and you only gave me complete honesty, or describe this to me like you were blind, because I want to get all of the keywords that the computers are using to generate these images. So what I'll do is get it to generate the images and tell me what it thinks about the photo. And if it doesn't mention judge or anything like that, that's fine. I'll take that word out and then put it back in to get the image that I want to get.
Perfect. So, and just for those that are listening that don't know specifically, DALL-E is owned by OpenAI, same people do ChatGPT, and I think it's just DALLE, or is it OpenAI?
Dot or a dash? Yeah.
Yeah. But if you just Google it, that'll come up. So once you're in DALL-E, what do you do? I've never had it generate image. I never had it generate text from an image. So there's just a feature in there, or a button, or what?
Yeah. You just upload the photo and then you put in the prompt. Hey, could you please describe this to me? And if you get in more detail about who is doing the describing, like sometimes I'll put in, describe this like you were a critical art director that worked for one of the top 5 design agencies, like Polish or like, right? And you can put all this stuff in and it'll like look at it differently each time. So the perspective that you put in when the computer is looking at these images matters just as much to me as the output and how you prompt it, So and then once I get that information, I'll just like ask DALL-E for the gen ID, right? What is the generation ID of this number? And then I'll ask it to amend it. And so with the report, I was like, there's one illustration that I can't even tell it was AI art, just because of like the amount of prompts I had to put in to get it to work. But I mean, if I spend 15 minutes, half an hour on an image that is custom to what I want, as opposed to having to search for it or draw it, then it saves me time and it saves my client money. And we still have like high quality products that we're putting out.
Sure. And now, just to be clear, those images are not copyrightable. So that's always the double-edged sword of that, right? Because right now the law states that it has to be human authored, and as it states now, what we are doing as prompters is not considered human authorship. But so
Yeah.
I just I'm trying to keep the information out there. Yeah.
As long as clients aren't sued, right, for copyright infringement, and as long as we can sell the goods that we are producing,
Right.
I think this is a race that's like first to market with all of these ideas, and you see that bubbling, especially within the African American community for the designers. Matter of fact, Dave, we were all on. We have a movie night with our group, and last night we watched the Adobe Max to see how they were implementing all of these things into their products. And Dave, what did you think about it?
Oh, I think I used this word last night. Sometimes I feel like a Luddite. Like I'm the guy that would be like, if you went back in time, I would be the guy saying that the telephone was of the devil and was going to snatch all of their souls. I'd be that guy.
Burning witches and shit.
But it's only because there's this first article I ever read about AI, which was shockingly only probably 6 months ago. Everything's happening so fast.
Wow.
And it was from the perspective of an illustrator who his catalog had been sampled heavily by Midjourney and DALL-E.
Yeah.
And he would do a search for his work using his name, and most of the things that came back in the search returns were AI generated art.
Wow.
So basically his entire illustration career had been destroyed in a few weeks.
Wow.
So that's the case study that I have rattling around in my head all the time. And I'm just sort of wondering and waiting, well, when are they going to snag my work and destroy me? So that's where I'm coming from when I think about that sort of thing. So the examples we were looking at last night, there was a designer on stage, and she had, one of the things I liked is she had her own style of illustration off to the side, right? And she had a desert, a view of a desert, cactus, sunset, far off rocks, sort of like Monument Valley in Utah and Arizona. So that's what was over here. And then she had her work over here. She was able to tell Firefly, right?
Yeah, Firefly with
within Illustrator. Tell the Adobe software, render this desert scene like my work. And it took her style and then sort of redid the desert scene in her style. And that was cool because she was sampling her own stuff.
Right.
But then she put in a prompt. She wanted to see a tiger, and she wanted a cute tiger. And all of the cute options for tigers, I could see other illustration styles in it. I could see they had borrowed from Pokemon. They had borrowed from the Animaniacs. I could see all these little things that they had borrowed from, and it wasn't original. It wasn't real. So that's where I'm kind of on the fence of sometimes, ooh, I think it's cool. And then sometimes I worry about, well, that's just not real to me.
Yeah.
Real. Everyone's so excited about it. It makes me feel like I'm the ancient guy, Chicken Little, the sky is falling.
So,
yeah,
Carl, what's your take on what he was saying?
Yeah, no, I mean, I hear that. So it is that, right? There's a lot of people who just got punched in the face. Literally, their career just got taken out of the knees, and they came up from behind them and just knocked them out, right? Like especially concept artists, we've seen them really get thrashed especially because they were never selling the IP rights, and a lot of, well, I don't know about never, but a lot of times they're just like concepting, right? Like just as quick and dirty. And now quick and dirty is almost effortless for anybody to visualize things with just words, right? So they're getting, it's a really rough spot for them. But, and then in that space that people are just stealing other people's identities, like that's a big problem. Like just what we call aping their style. And that's something we talk about at the Graphic Artists Guild a bunch.
Yeah.
And so it's really rough there, man. And then the flip side of it is like, So two things are happening. Like it's making art very accessible to everyone, where it used to be something you had to really work hard on. Like nobody comes out of the womb being like the next greatest artist. Like we all put in our time, energy, and effort into it. Some of it comes a little easier for some people than others, but at the end of the day, like you put in your 10,000 hours and you get somewhere. It's allowing people to springboard over some of that, which really is frustrating to some of us who put in the time. But I do think if we look at this as a tool to embrace and we go, hey, look, how much faster, quicker, better, faster can I get to a whole another level with the skills I have married with these amazing tools? And I've been using that on a weekly basis. Like I have a live stream that I do on Sunday nights where I just make art as fast as possible in like 2-3 hours. I collaborate with pieces from my deceased father and I drop them into Photoshop and I work on top of them. And the stuff I've been able to, like, I just don't care what anyone thinks about how I got there. And I'm just like, I'm using AI pieces. I'm drawing on top of it. I'm combining stuff, doing content aware, layering in my dad's shit. It's amazing. And then the last point I'll make on that is that people are going to highly, highly, highly more value people who make things by hand, right? The fully non-digital approach, the full like custom, even a bespoke, like I drew this in Photoshop, that's going to have more and more value for people as there's more and more sort of, I don't want to call it junk art because I think it's got its place and it's beautiful and it's a new type of art. But we saw this same conversation happen, when digital photography became a big thing, and it's like, oh, this isn't art. It's not art. You can just snap a picture. This isn't art. I used to have to draw this picture, and it was even before digital photography. It was just like regular photography. But people started seeing that there was a methodology to do photography in an artistic way, right? And we're going to see that with these AI tools as well. Like if you just type some shit in there and it pops out a picture, like you didn't really do anything. Like, yeah, you got an Instagram account and you take pictures of your friends on the beach. Like you're not a photographer, right? Like, that's the same kind of consciousness I see evolving with this technology.
Yeah. So do we feel like it's a threat to our individuality? Because like you were saying, we feel like we put in the hours, right? Yeah. And I know a lot of times when new people come into like our design industry, like I know a lot of people are in a small circle because the design industry, once you start getting into like your circle, maybe Graphic Artists Guild or AAGD or anything, you start like really knowing the same people. And I don't know if people feel like, these people are just coming in and they're able to do what I do. And it's just like internal jealousy because they didn't have those tools. Or if we were growing up at that time, would we embrace those tools to help advance us? If we were younger and more open, especially if you're like my 11-year-old and you're bombarded with all of this content making and all of these tools anyway.
Yeah. I mean, I got a 12-year-old. I totally agree. Like, the tools. So here's the thing, right? Like if the tools are there and you don't use them, you need to niche yourself into a spot that's like, hey, I don't use these tools and this is why, and this is part of my brand. Because if you're running the same race, and like, hey, I've got a horse and buggy and old dude's over here in a Ferrari, like you're not in the race. You know what I mean? And business so often is about that. Like my grandfather was an entrepreneur. I get more shit done in 1 week than he probably did in a whole quarter because of the technology I have access to. You couldn't there wasn't emails. If I need to send somebody some information halfway across the country, I had to ship them a fucking letter. Like, yeah, crazy.
Right. And your grandfather would be like, that shit ain't real. That email shit.
Yeah. So it's just like, but I'm not any more like successful than him. I'm just in a different game, right? Like I have to use these tools, right? Like he made millions of dollars and was very successful, and I didn't inherit any of that. Just
damn.
Yeah, like it's just for the record. that blew up. That blew up in the generation between my grandfather.
Oh man,
unfortunately, but some of the wisdom was passed on, so that's okay. But anyways, I say that to say like it's part of the game now, right? Like so you got to factor it into how you play the game because this business stuff is a game. For sure.
What you're saying is absolutely true. So right, like your grandfather could probably afford to use the tools that he used, but the way our economy is and capitalism and the fact that so many of our clients are trying to squeeze us, having these tools now, I see, is providing a buffer between that budget that's too low and the ability to produce something, especially for somebody that may not have the high design taste that we're used to. So for my community and the people that Dave and I serve, like one of our clients, I'm not going to mention my name, But if we would have started generating AI art with them, that would have been better because that whole campaign wasn't copyrighted, right?
Yeah.
What's good?
Which campaign were you talking?
What's good? What's good?
Technically, technically it was copyrighted because it was done by the illustrator.
The name was, did they copyright the actual artwork? I don't know if they did.
I mean, we sort of get in the weeds of what, was it copyrighted or trademarked? It was not trademarked.
That's right. Gotcha.
But just by nature of its creation, it was instantly copywritten, right? I mean, it was the intellectual property technically belonged to that illustrator because we never signed a contract to say we own it.
Right.
It happens to work for the organization. So it's probably, depending on the employment laws of California,
right.
It might not be his copyright because he did it as an employee of
work for hire.
That's
so I know in Texas, the copyright would belong to the business. I don't know what it's like in California, with the clients in California.
Okay.
So, who knows really?
I see you put some thoughts in here though on this chat.
Right. But being that California is the capital of the creative industry, surely the corporations have lobbied politicians to have a law that says if you work for a company, whatever you create for that company belongs to the company. I seriously doubt they're artist-centric in California just because the entertainment industry is there. So that would be my guess.
Okay.
Yeah. I would say it's probably a safe bet. Maybe somebody will let us know.
But I think you still have to register those with a copyright artist or the copyright bureau. Is it a bureau?
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, let's get off of that. We're not here to talk about that. So let me talk about the gap that I was talking about with AI, right? So we have this client, let's say they only have $5,000 and they want to compete with like bigger companies, but seem boutique, right? And they have a website, they have a logo, and they have one other thing that they need to do. But they are not capable of providing us with the market research we need to come up with a great logo. So today, I spent a half an hour asking ChatGPT, okay, read this website, and it's ChatGPT 4. Read this website and tell me the sentiment of the tone that this company is delivering. Tell me their unique selling proposition, and then give me their comp set. And it just spit all that stuff out, right?
That's crazy.
Yeah. And so I fed that to the designers, and then I was like, okay, also like, could you give me some more information about some case studies and what would make this website better? Spit it all out. And then I took their mission statement, and I was like, I put the mission statement in it, and I said, well, this is their mission statement. Does it really represent the warmth and boutique and personal service that they want to portray? And I was like, and if it doesn't, please rewrite it so it does. So it rewrote it, And then so all of this stuff is giving us all of the information we need to not only generate a really great logo, but to have this like other information that we can surprise the client with because they have no idea how we got this information. But we have all the comp sets. And then the last thing I asked was, hey, are there any questions that I'm missing that I should ask? And it was like, yeah. Here are 3 questions you should ask. What about market trends? And I was like, well, shit, tell me about market trends. And then it popped out all the market trends. And then I was like, okay, that's great. Now, could you put this in a report in a Word document with an executive summary and outlines? And it was like, I was like, oh.
It's so good. It's so good. And there's so many different ways to do it. And it's like you were saying earlier, like, hey, tell me what this image looks like from this perspective. When we use ChatGPT or any of these prompters, you do the same thing, right? Like, write me some copy as a world-class marketing copywriter, and then ask me questions that, so it's like you kind of talk to it almost like someone you're trying to educate in your profession on exactly what you want them to do. And then they become that person just by you asking them to be that person.
Yeah.
And then it's like, it's really powerful stuff. And now that it's at, GPT-4 can access the internet and read the actual live website data.
Yeah.
It's kind of low-key terrifying. It does have some parameters. Like, you can't look up a human being. You can't go find more information about Colorful Carl. It won't do it.
That's smart.
Yeah. It's like, so I've tried to use it like, hey, give me a list of names of like, I was like, all right, I want all the top tabletop gaming companies because like we're working on growing in that market space right now. And give me all the top tabletop gaming space companies out, like their creative directors and their email addresses. It's like, oh, we can't do that, but here's their website and their contact page. I was like, that's a close second. Like, so,
I'll tell you, damn it.
yeah.
So have you guys been happy with the results you get back from ChatGPT, or do you feel like what you get, you still have to massage it?
Oh, definitely massage, but it's like 80% there for me.
Yeah, so there are a couple of ways to look at this too, because now there are the tiny GPTs that are specific. So what you can do, what I have been doing in a couple of ways, is uploading, like, read my website. I'll upload like some of our contracts, or upload some of our proposals, or upload things, all of this to this brain, this repository. And now that it's in a repository, I can ask it to read and review the repository and then pull out some elements that are the tone for our brand voice. And then when it writes responses, I can tell it to use that brand voice within that, just that one module of the ChatGPT, right? And so there's another module that I made where I put in all of the members of our organization. And I was like, okay, tell me who lives in Atlanta. How many people live in Atlanta? How many people live in Atlanta? What's their website? You know, and it's start like, how many people can connect together? What do they have in common? How many people need? And so like, I'm able to like go through data in ways that I could never, ever do before. And I find that, like you said earlier, fascinating and terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, the data part of it's interesting. I used it to craft a new bio for myself and a new an artist statement. And it was just like, I would never talk about myself the way this thing talks about me.
It probably was a lot more positive, wasn't it?
Oh, it was so positive. It was so glowing and supportive. Like, I mean, come on. I wouldn't talk about myself.
That's you. That's you.
Really fun.
So did it make you view yourself differently, knowing that this machine was able to put together something about you that was...
Well, I literally searched bio for Dave McClinton. That's all I inputted.
Oh, really?
That was it. And within the first sentence, it said, born and raised in a small town, like I'm some sort of John Mellencamp. So passion for art was ignited at a young age. Like,
wow.
No one said that. I mean, where is that even coming from? So, yeah, it's weird and terrifying.
Yeah, well, if you feed it very specific information about yourself, it will be able to craft a much more succinct message about you.
Yeah, well, I wrote, like I said, the input was bio for Dave McClinton. That's all.
Yeah. So you get out of it what you put into it, right? Like, so yeah, I've spent probably 4 hours programming a few conversations on exactly talking in our brand voice, and like, hey, ask me, 15 questions going to help you better understand how I talk about my business, and like it gets all like
excellent.
So. And I spent a lot of time on that. So once you do all that, though, then it's like, hey, give me 10 articles about trending things in graphic design that I can post on LinkedIn this week, and it'll go, oh, you could try it, and it'll give you 10 subjects. Okay, all right, well, write a full article for item number 1, and boom, it drops it out, and I read it over. I'll always tweak some things because sometimes it's a little repetitive for me. But then it's like you can just copy and paste it. There's even other AIs where you can copy the information, paste it into the AI, and remove the ability for it to be detected that it was written by AI. So like, I'm pretty sure like they came up with this for college kids.
That is so wild.
It is how to do the thing where it loops the same sentence in just a different way. So
it does do that sometimes.
Yeah, it does.
It says like, Dave is an artist from California. The artist from California, Dave.
Yes.
It's just looping all that info over and over again.
Totally does that sometimes. So like I said, I've never seen it drop something out where it's like, oh my God, but like I've gone, wow, it would have taken me 2 hours to get here, and it just took 3 seconds. Like, so that's really nice. And I also find it's really helpful when I'm just trying, like, I have a big picture thing, but I don't know exactly what I'm trying to get to, especially if on a creative side. So sometimes it's like, give me a bunch of random ideas for a psychedelic abstract piece of art. And it's like, oh, try some this and some mushrooms and some crazy art. I know, like, whatever it is, like, not do mushrooms, like, put mushrooms.
Yeah, that's what I thought I was saying. I could try some mushrooms.
Didn't tell me to do psychedelics. Which would be hilarious.
Yeah.
I find it's really powerful at removing creative block. Like, as long as you have like a loose idea of a direction you want to go, like, it'll just keep shitting out things, and something's going to spark you. And it might just be like, that's a terrible idea, but that makes me think about this good idea.
Yeah. So that's what I always talk about, people and giving really dirty sketches when working with clients, especially with logos, so that you don't get too deeply into the process. And I feel like I do that because people can get into the mode of a critic easier than a creative, right? It's always the fight. So having GPT, I just did it today too. I had to try to make logos. I think it sucks at making logos. All of them suck at making logos, which is great, right?
For now.
And then for now, right. And so when it came out, I was just like, oh, that sucks so bad, but I kind of get what you might have been going for. So let me take that idea and tweak it. So it looks nothing like what it generated, but you're right. In terms of creative block, instead of having to I'm going to say it, instead of having to pay junior designers to come up with a million ideas, you can just have it come up with a million ideas and pick the best ideas and send those to the junior designers to work.
Yeah. It really does remove that entry level crap layer of things in almost every industry, right? We're going to see it proliferate in a lot of directions. I just keep thinking about it from a medical perspective too, not to go on a too hard of a tangent, but it's wouldn't you want something that has the most up-to-date information on every piece of medical data and the entire planet, running through a database that goes, oh, we're going to scan your vital systems and you have this problem, this blah, blah, blah. It's just no one human brain can have all that information. So it just seems crazy powerful.
Yeah. And do that hopefully without bias, but without folklore or other customary traditions that's going to keep them from understanding what the truth of knowledge is. I think it's ridiculously powerful. Yeah. Both, I wanted to ask, I know you're interviewing, but I love asking questions. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine, man.
Okay, so Carl and Dave. So what I think is all of this is moving into is coming up with a personal code of ethics, right? For how you interact with AI. And I wonder, as designers, how do we promote that code of ethics? I only use AI to do this, and I still want to function as maybe a B Corp and make sure that I'm not putting other designers out of business. Do you think that that's where we're headed? And if we are headed that way, let me ask ChatGPT. Oh no, I'm kidding. How do you foresee yourself moving in the future, and what codes would you want to keep that you feel are essential to you?
Yeah, you want to go first, Dave?
Well, I just put in, is AI ethical into my chat GPT, and I'm getting my responses.
It's well, what happened was
bias, fairness, transparency, privacy, accountability, security, job displacement is number 6. So it took a while to get there. So a personal code of ethics, I would want the client to know that the work that's being created came from my brain. Yeah. So
transparency on whether or not AI was used.
Yeah, so I guess I would say, and it's one of those things that, do you even bring it up unless you're asked? I could see that being a regular question a few years from now. I could see that being a standard question a client asks you, or will you be using AI to create this new mark for me or not?
But why should it? Oh yeah, mark, yes. But
I can see that being a thing. Will this logo be generated by AI, or will it be generated by your creative team? How? Can you imagine? That might be a legit question.
But they don't ask if their logos have been generated by clip art now.
I'm just saying. I'm saying it could be. It could be asked right now.
Well, if you depending on
smart, if a client is smart, knowing they're going to need to trademark. I mean, let's get logo centric for a second. If a client knows they need to trademark a logo that they're purchasing, that they're getting the services from a designer, if they're savvy, or if the designer does a good job of explaining what the relationship is, the designer explains this. They explain the notion of copyright. They explain the notion that the client, there needs to be a contract that explicitly states you're buying the rights. And then it's incumbent upon the client to go handle the trademark aspect of things. And none of those things are possible if you've used clip art. And none of those things will be possible if you've used AI so far. So whether or not the client knows that or not, I think the designer should explain that to the client. So circle back to the original question, code of ethics. I would try to be as upfront about all that potentiality and where I stand on it. I would want to be as transparent about all that as I could.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a fantastic thing that we should all be mindful of for sure. I get lost sometimes in like the fatalism of just money ruling the world, right? Like it's like,
Yeah.
it's like, hey, we all got opinions and that's nice and shit, but like the big multi-billion-dollar, multi-trillion-dollar international companies are going to do whatever the fuck they want, and it's like, how do we fight the fight in any sort of way that is meaningful, right? So,
Right.
I think honestly, I think Web3 in itself is going to become a powerful tool for transparency and going like, hey, look, this was unique stuff. I minted an NFT based off of my unique work, therefore proving through this system that this is a legitimate thing that wasn't generated here or here or here, and this is the original real copy. And then I think we're working on some stuff still over at the Guild, and I'm sure there's several other industries, other places working on this stuff too. But basically, trying to come up with this code of ethics. Adobe has something they put out recently as well. But like we're all just trying to kind of put our heads together as creative leaders across the country and the world, going, hey, what does this need to look like? There needs to be opt-in and opt-out options, right? Like if I don't want any of my stuff in a data set, like that should be my choice. I created these things. I'm the creator of them, right? And if my things are in a data set, there should be some sort of compensation, right? And there should also be some sort of like, hey, this is like Dave's work contributed to this thing here, right? Like so like some of that needs to be built into this somewhere.
Right. There would be nice if there was some sort of I think we've all done like reverse Google image searches, right? To at least I have, to make sure, like if I've got a logo, I'll search the logo I just created to see if it shows up anywhere else, to see if maybe that idea had seeped in from somewhere else. It would be nice if there was some way to search AI data sets, search for your name, search for your style.
There is.
If someone's already purloined your style to some degree, that would be.
I think it's called, if you Google search like did I get scraped, or am I in the data set or something? I forget what is it. Like you can actually search your name through that data set,
Cool.
and jump in there and see if your stuff's in there. The lawsuits and all that stuff are still in place. I think a big significant one just lost, but it just wasn't a well put together lawsuit. So but this is all evolving, right? Like we've had a couple conversations about this on the podcast already, and like this is always fun. So.
Yeah. What I wish?
It's strange to be in the middle of we're basically living this history that, 20 years from now, designers are going to be like, man, I'm glad I wasn't around.
Man,
in 2023, because that must have been wild.
Yeah.
It's the same conversation that I remember looking at the guy who used to run the stat camera at the newspaper I worked at, late 90s. And the advent of Photoshop meant that you could apply a what is it, a dot, the halftone to images. You didn't need the stat camera anymore. But hippies ran this paper, so they kept all the old guys around. But he could see that, oh my God, my career's over. Like I remember I had to train him how to use Photoshop. We sat right next to each other. I had to train him how to use a Mac. And I guess it would be tantamount to some kid trying to show me, like it's all come full circle. I can imagine like a 20-year-old kid saying, hey, look at all the stuff we can do with AI and all Firefly. And I'm just standing there like, oh my God.
Yeah, fuck that shit. I'm not. I'm not. Yeah, it's too much.
Hey, can you get off my lawn?
It's not the tone of voice I would use, okay? It's dismissive of you to characterize me that way.
It's all from love. It's all from love. All right, guys. Well, we're coming up on time here. This has been such a fun conversation. It goes so fast when we've got good dialogue. But before we wrap, I have one last question for you guys. And I'll ask each of you individually. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you'd like to shout out to the audience? Maybe a mentor, a valuable resource, favorite client, anything like that.
Dave, and go. I'll go first. You seem to be thankful. So there is Omari Souza. I mean, there's so many people, right? But let's do Omari Souza in the State of Black Design, which will be happening March 15th through 16th. I admire him because he is taking on a lot of responsibility to move the community forward and working with HBCUs to make sure that African-American designers understand what design is and providing a platform to bridge the difference between somebody who's just started design and somebody who's been in design for a very long time. So that's my shout out. State of Black Design Conference.
State of Black Design Conference. And who was that? You said?
Omari Souza.
How do you spell that?
Omarisouza.
I'm glad I asked. That was way. Okay, good. All right. Well, thank you. How about you, Dave?
I would want to shout out the org that I'm actually in, and its founder, Terrence, because no one else is really thinking about on the level of the where he's thinking about young African-American designers and what they're up against and how it can feel like they're on an alien planet if they're lucky enough to get that first job.
Oh, wow.
I don't think it's pretty simple to just go to just think of whatever agency you can think of, ad agency, design agency, and then go look at their staff page. And that tells you all you need to know about what it would feel like to grow up in one culture and then to have this love for design and art and creativity, and then find yourself feeling instantly like an outsider. But being able to bounce those ideas and those feelings and that stress and that angst off of other designers who are maybe 20 years older than you, who have gone through it.
Yeah.
I think is a wonderful environment for younger designers, and even self-taught designers that don't have to necessarily be young. Is designers who don't necessarily have corporate experience or agency experience to be able to express how they feel in an environment where you're going to run into people who have already done what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
So I would say the AIGA just doesn't touch in any way what AAGD, African American Graphic Designers, has done. So I would shout that out in everything Terrence has done to forward that.
Love that.
I appreciate that.
Okay. Yeah, man.
Oh,
what's up?
Okay. I was going to throw in one more ChatGPT thing.
All right.
I'm just going to say, well, thank you, Dave, again. And then I'm going to say, I finally got ChatGPT hooked up to Zapier.
Oh.
Holy shit. Holy shit. It's very powerful.
Do you owe me $5 again?
Yeah. So every time I introduce a new piece of tech, I owe Dave $5. And so I'm probably
It's a new app. It's a new app
every day.
Every other week.
Yeah.
And I have a new app I want us to use. Hey, I have a new podcasting app I want us to use. Hey, I have a new communication app I want us to use. So I'm just charging money now because it's ridiculous.
Dude, Terrence is trying to keep everybody on the cutting edge, man. Y'all can't get left behind. You guys started the race behind everybody just because of the cultural setting.
Yeah.
So like Terrence is like, hey, we gotta go.
Catch us up.
I'm going to make money off that. I'm just going to make money off that hustle.
I love it. All right. Well, big thank you. I think it was Unique DeCosta that introduced us. Who was the president of the Graphic Artists Guild. And a huge shout out to Unique. Maybe we'll have her. We gotta have her on the show. I'm gonna write that down.
Absolutely,
dude. She's just a whole energy in herself. She's a vibe. I love it. She's amazing. All right. So we've been talking to Terrence Moline and Dave McClinton, both from the AAGD, and that is the. Sorry, break that down for me one more time.
African American Graphic Designers.
Okay, I could have got that. There we go. African American Graphic Designers. You can check out their website at aagd.co.
That is correct.
Okay. But if listeners want to follow up with either of you directly, where should they go?
Yeah, up on LinkedIn, T Moline. That's where I'm always there. I'll answer your stuff and ask you how you're doing and what's up in your world.
Love it. How about you, Dave? You get
Probably the same. Dave McClinton at LinkedIn is the best place to find the links to everything else.
All right, fantastic. Well, you guys were wonderful guests. Thank you so much for joining me here today on the Pixel Retentive Podcast. And until next time, friends, we'll see you soon.
Thank you for having us. Bye-bye.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.